If you are here, you have taken an active role in bettering your life, no matter what stage of life you are in. The Banyan Treatment Center's podcast will discuss many topics like recovery, addiction, self-help, mental health, and so much more. It will provide you with tools to succeed, ideas for recovering, and how-tos on creating a better life. My name is Alyssa, and today's episode is about whether social media and depression are linked. Today on our panel, we have Ryan Steinberg and Abby Dorfman. Abby, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Sure. Hi, my name is Abby Dorfman. I am the National Business Development Manager for Banyan Treatment Centers. I've worked at Banyan for about 1.5 years, and I've worked in the behavioral health field for about 6 or 7 years, even pre-recovery. And with that being said, I have been in recovery for the last 5 years. I celebrated 5 years clean in the beginning of March.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
And I'm Ryan Steinberg. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I've been licensed since 2017. I also serve as the executive director at Banyan Treatment Centers. I oversee 3 facilities, including substance use disorder, mental health disorders, you name it. Behavioral health, we're treating it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited to have you guys here speaking about this topic.
Of course.
Especially because it's such an important topic.
Of course.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
The use of social media has recently been depicted as the cause of depression and or suicidal attempts and deaths in many court battles in the U.S. Is social media helping us or harming us? That's the question of the day. Are there ways to combat the depression that comes with social media use? Today, we are going to take a deeper look into the effects of social media on our society. So our very first question here is, do you believe social media and mental issues are linked, and why? Ryan, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yes, personally, I do believe that social media and mental health are correlated. Not only do I believe it, but there's also a lot of research that does support the causation and correlation between depression and social media. So there's 2 different facets. One of them is that there is the aspect of envy that occurs from social media. So
Yes.
You're looking at profiles, you start to get envious about other people's lifestyles that you want to live. And then there's the part of the amount of disconnection that you have. You are not engaged in your actual life. You are more focused on scrolling on the phone. Which can have negative impacts on life.
I agree with what you're saying, and I am definitely guilty of the first one, being envious when I see things.
Yeah.
There have even been times for my own mental health where I've had to unfollow certain people because I was just too jealous.
Yes, absolutely. Ryan, you bring up a lot of really good points. And I definitely think the link between social media and mental issues is undeniable.
Yeah.
Not only from the envious aspect where you look at someone's picture and you compare, oh, their life is so much more glamorous than mine. Look at how they carry themselves. Look at all of these things they do. I'm such a loser. But also in the aspect of, and in that same vein, like not feeling good enough and it boosting this internal sense of I'm less than, and all of those insecurities that go with that. And so I think that when we look at the mask that social media presents, because it's not real life, it's just like this glamorized version of it, we are left without a choice to compare, and also compare negatively, So I think that as much as it is a social aspect, it's definitely detrimental.
Yeah. And it makes you think about yourself because, we know these things. We know that there's a level of fakeness associated with social media. There's a level of inauthenticity, but yet again, we're also very attracted to it as a society. We are engaging, we're spending time here. So it's like, why are we looking at this? And if we know that it's not doing well for us mentally, why are we engaging? Why are we investing? Why are we spending so much time on it? And the truth is, there must be there is a benefit to being on social media. It starts off very harmless, you know? We connect to our friends. We want to see what's going on. We want to be inspired. We want to be motivated. But I think going into social media full on knowing, you know, the harms that are there, which we can talk about later. But I think that it is a weird phenomenon because we know this about social media, yet we're so engaged, we're so invested to it.
Yes, it's almost like an addiction. Like, it's why you find yourself in bed at 1:30 on a work night, like scrolling an Instagram, right, to hurt your own feelings.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely like a draw to it, even though you're like, this doesn't feel good.
Right. This isn't helping me put my mind at rest to put my body to rest.
Right.
I want to touch on the fakeness too, because the fakeness really has just spiraled out of control.
Sure.
When it comes to social media, there are now jet rentals just for photography purposes that you can use. So talk about a level of fakeness.
Right.
Putting on this persona, you have this money, you take private jets places. People are able to just rent the jet to take photos. I also believe that just the internet and social media in general and how much it's grown over the past, 20 years, really. Years ago, you could only see what celebrities were doing in magazines.
Right.
Or on television.
Right.
And now, because it's so readily available to us and we're constantly seeing it, it's becoming so normal to see it and want to try to replicate it. And I think that that's also some of the problem is like these people are trying to live these grandiose and lavish lifestyles like a celebrity when a lot of people just can't do that.
Right.
So they're just trying to compare themselves or, act a certain way that's just beyond unrealistic for 90% of the population.
Right.
So it makes sense that people would get hurt and be depressed with this type of stuff.
Right. You're fixated on an unattainable.
Exactly.
An unattainable.
And it's not real.
Level. No, exactly. Right.
So what aspects of social media do you guys think specifically cause the depression? I know we touched on some of them, but is there anything else you guys want to add to it?
Sure. I think it's really about envy in general. It's why am I, like we've talked about, why am I not this person who maybe doesn't work or travels all the time or has this exciting, fun life? I think it's really tough. I mean, on a personal basis, I struggle on a day-to-day basis. Like, does somebody really care for me to post about going to the grocery store or not? Like, my life is not very interesting every single day. And there's this pressure of like, yes, I had a fun day yesterday, but Monday through Friday, it's the norm. It's very, it's a blah day in general. And you almost feel this pressure of like, it's not okay to not keep your content fresh, looking at other people who are very dynamic and interesting. And there's a lot of pressure when it comes to self-esteem. There's a lot of pressure when it comes to self-worth. And then, the amount of screen time that one is investing, it can actually end up harming ourselves. There is a theory called displaced behavior theory that basically argues that anything sedentary, like sitting down and scrolling on the phone and viewing other people through your cell phone, it could be displacing this face-to-face interaction. So instead of connecting with our friends, instead of living our lives, we'd prefer to sit on our couch and scroll on the phone because it lets out those chemicals, those neurotransmitter releases. We get that dopamine rush, that serotonin rush just through viewing. We feel like we're connected, but we're actually not. So I think that plays a big role in regards to depression as well. You feel like you're living in it, but you're actually not living your life.
Some of the aspects that, I personally struggle with when I open up a social media app and I'm scrolling is some of it is positive and some of it is very uplifting, but you're also running into like a lot of negativity, a lot of, sad dog stories and like things like that.
I can't do it.
No, oh my God, instant tears. I can't do it. But even on top of like the feeling of being isolated or these like faux connections. You're also most of the time not receiving like a lot of positive portrayals of the world.
Right.
You know, you're being given these really sad news stories.
Yeah.
And
That's a good point.
yeah, like it's hard to get away from that. And then of course, the social aspect of that, you see a lot of the commentary where people might not have those same opinions as you. And so then that's even sad because you're like, look at this world, it's falling apart. And like, you can't walk away from that feeling positive. And then you scroll down and there's someone in a bikini and then you're like, and I don't even look like that on top of everything.
Yep.
It's just like blows as you're scrolling down your feed. Like in terms of what aspects really affect our mental stability, there's so many.
No, and you touch on so many good ones. I mean, the comments in general, my God. You know,
It's a horrible place to be.
yeah, it's a horrible place to be.
like a train wreck.
Sometimes it's beautiful. You know, there's
Yeah.
people that support, but it's gut wrenching to see the negative comments in general. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And then, you know, it's also that facet of like, you know, how much worth we ascribe to ourselves based off how many likes we get or how many
absolutely.
reactions we get. And, you know, it can ruin your day. You know,
course.
if you post a picture that you really like about yourself and you get 20 likes as opposed to 200 or 2,000 that
you're
somebody
done
else
for.
got,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it can affect your
Of
entire
course.
day.
I thought I was somebody and now I'm not.
I thought that picture was good.
Right.
I thought you'd be interested.
Right. Should
And
I
no-
delete it?
You're like, was it the time I posted it?
Right.
Right.
Should I
Repost
re-strategize?
Right. And it reinforces
Right.
that notion that
Yeah.
no one cares.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that can be a tough pill to swallow, you
Yes.
know? And it's really hard to conceptualize and to digest the fact that, like, you know, it could be many factors. It could be that people were busy throughout their day, or it could just be that there's a lot of people that are looking at content and not communicating or
Right.
not liking. So there's a lot of deeper facets that you have to dig into, but the comments can be definitely daunting. The interaction can be daunting,
For
and it
sure.
can be used in a very negative way.
Right.
Or it could just be, I got more likes last time I posted, and now I'm not getting enough. So what am I doing wrong?
Right.
Yeah. And you touched on this when you were speaking, Ryan, the addictive aspect of it.
Right.
I'm sure you've probably both seen it, but for those of you that have not on Netflix, there's a documentary called The Social Dilemma, which interviews
Terrifying.
people from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, former employees, whistleblowers, if you will. And
Grateful for their
cover-
service.
they discuss that the design of social media is intentional to draw you in and make you addicted the way that you need to constantly refresh for new content. It is the same motion as a slot machine in a casino. You are gambling with social media every time. What am I going to get? What am I going to get this time? It is intentionally designed to draw you in. And just remember that when you're on social media and you feel like you've been using it too much, that it's not necessarily just you, it's designed to draw you in.
And I can even think about, like, if you don't think that you have a dependency to social media, boy, Apple has a great way of humbling you. Every single week, that weekly screen time
Yes,
report,
yep,
oh my
yes.
God. Just looking at the sheer data of how many hours I've dedicated to just looking at my phone, oh
Yep.
my God. And then to see it's went up from last week, oh my, it's crazy. That's a humbling experience in
Yes.
general.
Apple's actually done a really good job when it comes to that, offering limits to certain app times.
Right.
Have you guys ever utilized that?
Personally, no.
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 I have not. I know people that have.
Right.
And I'm very envious of their responsibility in doing something like that. So you can set an amount of hours
wow.
that you're allowed to use certain applications, like social media applications. If you're like, I'm only allowed to look at social media for an hour a day, it will tell you like you're running out of time.
Wow.
Yep.
The closest I ever get to that is when I'm scrolling on TikTok for 4 hours and you get those videos and it's like, hey there, you've been scrolling for a while, and they sort of like gently like shame you, like you should go eat something, and I'm like, that sounds good, I'm dehydrated. Like, that's like the closest but it's very effective, you know. It's social media kind of holding itself accountable to like
Yeah. There needs to be more of that. There definitely needs to be more of that. So how do you guys think cyberbullying has an impact on the link between social media and depression? I know we talked about the comments, but let's really dive into that topic specifically.
So I was reading facts about like the younger kids on social media and how cyberbullying really affects them. And it's really interesting because there are a lot of things that I like to think us as a society, we would never say to someone's face. We would never make eye contact with someone and say those things. But because we have this false security of being behind a screen, we really feel like we can say and feel whatever we want.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hurtful. And again, like touching base on, just the comments on a simple post from like a popular account, you'll see someone say something and then there'll be 50 responses to that comment making fun of that person.
Yeah.
Like completely unwarranted. And I think that not only in the younger generations, but also in, like my age group, like the 25 to 35 age group, there's a sense of I could be attacked for anything I say and say these really direct, aggressive things. It has given us that ability. And I just don't think that we would have gotten there socially without being able to hide behind a keyboard, so to say. That's what they used to say when I was young.
Yeah.
Keyboard warriors.
Warriors, yes.
It's the concept of which you hit on, which is virtual anonymity, things that I probably might want to say in person but don't have the courage, or it's not appropriate, or I shouldn't say it. Now you can be veiled behind either yourself or a separate identity altogether.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And maybe express the things that you've always wanted to say without any sort of consequences and repercussions. So, I mean, I'm with you. I think especially in our youth, it is a huge, huge struggle because, I'm not sure that schools are doing enough in general to be able to police and enforce cyberbullying. But it's very layered, It's hard to track down who exactly wrote those comments as well. So I feel for the schools and the concept of it's hard to hold someone accountable because you can just have 30 fake Instagram profiles and comment on whatever. So you have no idea who's attacking our youth.
Yep.
But it really does put a dent in regards to the mental health of our youth in general. It's hard to hold your head up high in school and classrooms knowing that you probably know who just attacked you online, but they have no consequences, no need for accountability, and no capabilities of really holding those people, accountable for what words they're posting online. It's tough. It is very layered. And it's interesting because these schools are saying that they have, zero tolerance for bullying, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to figure out who was the bully.
Yeah.
And, bullying in general is just very layered.
It's horrible.
It's who do we hold accountable? Do we hold the person that attacked the individual accountable? Do we hold the community accountable for not saying anything, for letting it happen? It's very layered in general, but I think the majority of cyberbullying is really happening to our youth. At least in our workplace, there's enough policies and procedures that if someone's coming out the side of their neck in the workplace, they get terminated.
Yep.
There's zero tolerance, but for the kids that really have to live in their household, that have no reprieve, they have no way of avoiding, they have no freedom of getting out in this world. They just have to go to school every day and surround themselves by people who probably just attack them on social media.
Yep.
It's tough. I feel for them.
Now, for some of us that don't use Finstas, I personally have experienced the other side of things where I feel silenced on social media because I'm fearful to ever put out an opinion.
Right.
In lieu of the nasty comments that might be received from that said opinion.
Right.
Which also isn't fair. You're affecting my freedom of speech. I can't say what I believe in and what I stand for because I'm fearful that you're going to attack me for my own personal thoughts and opinions, even though I would not do the same to you.
Right.
I mean, if you ever just go to someone who posts, mildly political tweets.
Yep.
and then you go through the thread of responses, they attack your character and your intelligence.
Yep.
And it doesn't even really have to be political. It could just be a societal belief that you have. And there is such a lack of respect for the different beliefs that we have. And in terms of adults doing that to each other, and to go back to what Ryan was saying about the youths doing it to each other, I feel like it almost gives you this sense of helplessness. Like, I'm not safe, and no one's going to step up and allow me to have that voice, and no one's going to step up and protect me, especially when it comes to younger people. It's definitely a large part of it is being silenced. And that goes back to what we were talking at the beginning of the podcast, not feeling like you are good enough, or not feeling like you can genuinely be yourself.
Right. Yeah. And I think of the idea of cancel culture in general, where, people are held accountable for the one wrong thing that they said or the one wrong moment, even though they've spent, decades of their life existing and connecting. But, if they have a rough day, if they say something that's not accepted in the community, it is pretty rough in general that, as a society, we just choose to cancel them as a human being based off of that one moment. And, I get it. Words have power, whatever we're saying, people are following, people are listening, and there is a population that's influenced by what we're putting out there in social media. But it's a huge tightrope, and you're 100% right, Alyssa. I mean, it's hard to take a stand or hard to express an opinion with the fear of, am I going to be attacked for what I believe in, what I stand in? It's tough. And that's why people just post a lot of dog pictures usually.
Which I am grateful for.
Yes, we love the dog pics. Keep them coming. When it comes to cancel culture also, I mean, you just touched on it perfectly. It's just so frustrating because we try to teach the youth and society that we live in that actions speak louder than words, but in today's day and age, they do not.
Right. Yeah.
You could have said something 10 years ago that can affect you today, regardless of any philanthropy work that you've done or, supporting your community. If you said something 10 years ago that all of a sudden comes back to light, you could potentially be canceled for it.
Right. And I'm all for holding people accountable for their words. I'm all for it. Right. I'm all for an education, a learning experience, but I'm also all for someone being able to be accountable, say I'm sorry, and to allow them back into your life.
Yeah.
You don't just cancel someone as a human being. You can hold someone accountable for what they said if it was inappropriate or wrong, but allow someone the opportunity to rebuild themselves. That's very much what we do in our industry all the time. The rehab industry is built on second chances.
Yes. Can you imagine if we were held accountable for everything
Right.
we did during our addiction days?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking when you were talking about that. Like, 10 years ago, if I was held accountable for some of the actions and words and things, well, first of all, I wouldn't hold the job that I hold, and I probably, I probably wouldn't be able to own the animals that I own.
Right.
It would really, and again, it goes back to that aspect of social media where the internet is forever.
Yep.
And that also really feeds into this. There's no room for growth. There's no room for change. There's no second chances.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's no room to make any mistakes. It's a huge
So it's
pressure.
a level of perfectionism, again, like what we were talking about.
Unrealistic perfectionism.
Exactly. This unrealistic expectation that is on everyone, because it's just not, it's not human nature to be held to those standards all the time.
But yet it's still fun to look at.
Of course.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I go back to it because we keep talking about how nasty it is, but yet again, it would be a hypocrite if I didn't say that I
it's like
looked
watching
at
a train wreck.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
This is terrible, but I'm staring.
Well, why don't we jump into the solutions and suggestions that we can offer to people when it comes to social media, depression, cancel culture, whatever it is that's really bothering you when it comes to social media in today's day and age, because we have some really good tips and tricks and ideas for you to try to make it more of a positive feed. So
Sure. So I definitely subscribe to the approach of if it doesn't bring you joy, stop looking at it. You know, in the beginning age of social media, I really just kind of like followed everybody. Anyone that I connected to or anyone that I found reasonably interesting, I followed. And then I realized that, you know, there were a lot of people that I was following that I didn't get any sort of joy. It didn't provide me any sort of positive reaction. Sometimes I would look at them and I would either feel envious or I would feel angry or I would feel annoyed. It didn't bring me any sort of positive growth. So the first step that I took was really just, and the thing I would recommend is take a real good look at who you're following. Start to unfriend people. If they don't bring you joy, it doesn't matter. Even if you're close to them, either make the decision to unfollow or mute people.
Yes.
You know? Silence anyone on that feed that doesn't bring you joy. You're not going to lose out on whatever amazing opportunity that they're traveling to, whatever. If it's not bringing you joy, I'm a huge fan of just take it off your feed. Definitely take that time to curate your feed. And, you know, anything that you have, it's all about balance. So another tip that I have in general that I've used is making sure to follow something that's inspirational, something that you ascribe to, whether it's looking at how beautiful planet Earth is, or, you know, there's some Instagram profiles to follow, like Law of Attraction, and, you know, they give you motivational quotes, and it's nice to balance. You know, you don't want to have all motivational quotes or all about the Earth, but balance out the feed from like the ego into the inspiration. Banyan Treatment Centers does a very great job at providing, you know, education, information, and support in general, positive encouragement. So my first couple tips is be in control over what you're viewing.
Yes.
You know, take the time, invest the time to curate your profile into things that are bringing you joy, not things that you think you should be looking at, but things that actually evoke a positive reaction from you. And the second part that I would say is probably, you know, I'm a huge believer in regards to like, you get in life what you put out. So, you know, sitting here posting things, expecting that everyone's going to like your content, if you're not personally liking other people's stuff, other people probably aren't going to like your stuff. So it's very simple. It's very easy to spread love to other people. Hitting heart reacts to things, like be engaged, you know, don't just scroll. Don't be a passive participant. If you're going to be on social media, be an active participant. Share some love, you know, take some time to comment and say, oh my God, that is a beautiful experience. That food looks awesome. Or, you know, that trip looks amazing. Whatever it is, you know, be an active participant. Share, because the more that you put out, the more you receive.
Love the positive comments. You know, how much do we love to receive compliments? So to be able to give them as well is so important.
I love the idea of all I was thinking when you were sharing was like applying the Marie Kondo aspects.
100%.
Like looking at like, does this bring me joy? And if not, you thank it for its service and then you unfollow.
100%.
And I love that because I do that every 6 months with my closet. But in terms of eliminating the depression caused by social media, I think you hit very helpful and useful tips. Absolutely. There's a feature that I know Instagram offers and Facebook also offers, I believe, where it allows you to sort of quote unquote mute and silence someone, but still
100%.
follow them. So it's a very unproblematic way.
Right.
So then that person doesn't know that you're like not on their follower list, but they're not popping up on your feed unless you go out of your way.
It's very useful for family.
Yes.
Family in general, they're perfect.
You don't have to have those awkward, like, well, why did you unfollow me? But it's also not in your face. And I also think a really good point that you brought up, and I do this on my personal social media, is I am very selective of who I follow, of the things that I see. I know that Twitter has an option. If I see a tweet, you know, being in recovery, every once in a while, like a viral tweet will appear on my thread about drug use or things like that. And I will click the little options and I'm not interested in this tweet. So I eliminate those things. You know, in terms of diet culture, that's something that really causes depression in my personal life and makes me not feel good enough. And so if those things pop up on TikTok or those things pop up on Twitter or Instagram, I hold on to it and I click not interested. And that is me being proactive, because unfortunately the real world is we can't always avoid those things.
Yeah.
Right.
We can't always avoid those things, especially when we're scrolling on like the popular page or just like on the general homepage. But definitely utilizing those features and following people. This is a big one for me. Following people whose not lives feel unattainable, but people whose lives I respect.
Yeah.
Who I want to be like, but not in terms of like, I want to be outside of a jet or have really, high
like personal
cheekbones.
goals, inspire you.
You want to emulate some of those characteristics.
Exactly. So, and it's a realistic, people whose body looks like mine and people who are in recovery who post inspirational things like that, following treatment centers and behavioral health places that give you that motivation, that show like, this is a therapeutic tip, like therapeutic tip of the day. Like, oh, that's great. That's super helpful.
Yes.
So following accounts like that, not to the point of where it's like over... you're being bombarded with these like inspirational quotes with like a lion in the background, but like it's scrolling and it's sparking, it's giving you that dopamine, it's giving you that like you're pulled into it, but it's not causing this feeling of unrest.
Another thing that I wanted to add was that one thing I just wanted to say, I'd be remiss if I didn't, is the fact that it's really important to either know or understand or get familiarized with your own personal worth in general. Know that before emerging into the social media field, because so often do we find influencers in general who, it's been enmeshed into their identity that their worth is ascribed to however many likes they have in general, or what their most recent content is, or how many sponsors they have in general. And the most important thing that I would say as a mental health professional is you really have to be either in the industry of social media or to just be engaged in social media, is know who you are.
Yeah.
Start to get familiarized with who you are outside of social media. Have a healthy relationship with self, because there becomes this enmeshment and dependence where, people get very lost in my entire worth is what I'm putting out in the world through social media. So that's the biggest thing that I see as like a common trend in general. And if you are struggling with knowing what your worth is, I would definitely recommend counseling and therapy. It is, we live in an age where, I think America has done a great job in general as far as broadcasting and talking about investing in self, investing in mental health in general. We've reduced the shame in regards to seeking counseling. It's almost kind of a new fad to be able to get counseling and to get help. But I think it's extremely useful if you find that you're one of those people that I've talked about, and I've been one of those people who you don't know who you are without your social media identity. That would be a really good topic to delve into and to explore and to get help figuring out who you are aside from all of your social media profile. Right.
Having that foundation, it's a lot harder for someone to come in and take that from you because you have that foundation outside of the screen. It can be, someone can ding it and some things can bounce off of it, but it's definitely a lot easier when you have that groundwork of self-worth.
Right.
So the next question was literally going to be like how to help people, which you kind of answered. No, but that's amazing. And I side combo.
Yeah.
You should become like a social media like a depression consultant, and you can like hire clients to they'll come in, they'll be like, I'm depressed. You like give them a therapy session, and then you like fix up their feed for them. Like, this is what we're gonna do.
This is how we're gonna curate.
That is a much needed service. Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay, I'll put in some thought.
Well, the next question was actually going to be, what should we suggest to somebody looking for help? We kind of answered it, but let's just, dive in there and summarize it real quick.
Sure.
Of course, yeah. One of the things that we have not touched on first, and this is really important if we bring it all the way back to recovery. It's a little controversial, but one of the tips to help live with depression is put the screen down.
Yes.
Go find someone in the real world and have a real conversation. Listen to the way that their voice inflicts on certain words and watch their body language, because it is such a different connection than you would have through social media.
Yep.
And, you know, that's a lot easier said than done. Of course, we live in a society where social anxiety is very rampant. And if that's really difficult for you, what I suggest is finding a community online, whether it be like a Reddit community, because there's a community, fun fact.
There's a subreddit for everything.
There's a subreddit for everything. There is a subreddit for Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous.
Beautiful.
So I love that. But find that community. Start a group chat with those people, and sort of like bond with those people to really make those human connections. Because when it comes to living with depression, there's a saying that has always helped me, and it's so like it should be written on an inspirational poster, but it's just so fitting, because depression really convinces you that it will never get better.
Yep.
That is like it's like this monster in your head that doesn't want you to get better. And one of the things that really, really helps me when it comes to living with mental health and depression is the sun will always rise. There will always be a tomorrow.
It's beautiful.
You know, the sun, it will always rise again. You can always count on that. Like, there will always be another day. You just have to get there. You just have to get there. And I think that that's applicable when it comes to living with depression. And it's very applicable when it comes to getting clean and staying in recovery. If you have a day where everyone on social media is hotter than you and living a better life than you, and work is just like kicking your butt and it's a bad day, go to bed. Go to bed. You'll wake up and you made it another day, you know, and that is a small win.
No, you bring up a great point. In general, there are just some days where looking at social media as a whole just is a downer.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how great the content is, I'm just not in the right headspace, or I'm not prepared to look at other people's lives or see what's going on in the world. And I think it really is important to embrace that pause, because I'm a huge proponent. You've touched on it already. There's no such thing as a completely bad day. You know, it's that yin yang philosophy over the fact that while there is so much negativity and while there's so much pain that goes on throughout the days, there's also that component where life can also be beautiful at the same time. And it's taking a little bit of time, no matter what type of mood we're in, or no matter how crappy it is on social media, or how much the outside life is really hurting your soul. There's also something out there that can be beautiful in that moment, and it's making sure that we're taking the time and we're looking up. You know, I have people in my life that always tell me, Ryan, look up. You know, don't look down at your phone, look up.
Right.
See what's going on. Even if it's just a beautiful bird that's out there, or a nice sunset that's there, or whatever is going on in the world, there's some sort of beauty that you can find throughout your day, but you have to be able to look for it.
Of course.
You have to be able to look up. So I'm a huge proponent of, there are some days where just no matter how curated your content is it's not going to be beautiful. It's not going to spark joy, as Marie Kondo would say. It's not going to do that.
Right. And I think like a very similar, like what I was thinking when you were sharing that is, sometimes when I see a social media post that hurts my feelings and I did nothing to deserve that, like I'm just scrolling, you know, and something hurts my feelings. What I try and do, and it's so simple, but it really works, is like I try and just take a step back and find very simple things that I'm grateful for. Because social media, it connects us to this huge world outside of us.
Yep.
And we can feel very small and very insignificant. And again, like the reoccurring theme that we keep mentioning is feeling less than.
Right.
So when I step back and I'm like, you have this, this, and this to be grateful for, you know, and I thank my thumb and my pinky for holding my phone.
Beautiful.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
And sometimes it's just like I roll my eyes at myself and I'm like, yeah, but look how much happier people are than you. It still gives me a 30-second reset. And exactly, it goes back to what you were talking about, where you are having a bad moment, a bad couple of moments, which can happen in 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
But if you have a 60-second moment of, I feel okay, you know, that might be the one thing that gets you through that depressive episode, that depressive week.
Right.
To keep going.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's just important to point out the fact that social media in general, what we're talking about in this topic it's a stressor. You know, it can add into, you know, in talking about depression, you know, we're talking about some serious topics where we're talking about like major depressive disorder or persistent mood dysthymic disorder. These are real mental health disorders which can be triggered by a stressor like social media. But if you are going through, you know, what we call clinical depression, then I'm a huge fan of seek the most evidence-based treatment that's out there. You know, research has indicated that therapy alone and medication management alone are probably around 30% effective, but they have a synergistic fashion where they work together, and that those two, medication management and therapy together, actually reduce depression by 70%.
Wow.
And I think that's really important to say and to know, because there is a little bit of shame and stigma still attached to getting onto a routine of medications or to seek counseling, because, you know, we're in a culture where it's new. I want a new solution. I don't want to get back to the old medication I was taking. I don't want to go back to my old therapist. It's always like, I want to find something different that can help me with my depression. But I want to reduce that and just say, like, listen, if you've done anything that's worked for you in the past, do yourself a favor and reduce that shame and that stigma of, oh, I've spent 5 years without taking an antidepressant, so I don't have to take it anymore. Like, if you're going through one of those moments and it gets past the point of just like it gets to a clinical range of depression where you're starting to question, should I even exist? Should I even belong in this world? Those are things not to hold in within yourself. Those are things to share with professionals. Those are things to share with people that are in your support network. And those are things to take action on. There is a solution for it. There are a lot of professionals here to be able to help. Social media can easily be a trigger and a stressor, but if it gets to that point of clinical depression, there is an approach that works very well. And obviously, it can go further than that. There's treatment-resistant depression. People have experienced that in general. There are a lot more alternatives that can be explored, but I think that's a good structure to start off with, is having a treatment team help you navigate through if you're at that clinical depression level.
Thank you guys so much. This has been such an amazing conversation.
We've had a great time.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we've had ups, we've had downs. It truly has been beautiful.
I haven't looked at my phone once this entire hour, though. It was beautiful.
And I feel so much better.
Marie Kondo made an appearance.
Yeah,
It was really
appearance.
It was really a well-rounded conversation.
It was. Again, thank you guys so much for coming out here and shedding some light on this topic. Well, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember that growth and recovery are possible, and it can all start today. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Banyan Treatment Centers, and make sure you're subscribing for notifications of new episodes. And don't forget to leave us a review if you like this episode. If you or someone you know is struggling, call us at 888-515-7706. Thanks for joining us today on the Banyan Podcast.